Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to class. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting and significant concept in linguistics called bilingualism. Bi refers to two in number. So bilingualism essentially is more than one language, two languages. So the phenomenon refers to the capacity or the capability of an individual speaker to use, understand more than one language, two languages at least. And if it is more than two languages, then it is called multilingualism, right? So today we are going to talk about bilingualism as a linguistic phenomenon. Now, bilingualism is the phenomenon of speaking and understanding two or more languages. The term refers to the individual speaker's capacity, or maybe to entire speech community or society. So when it is individual, we are looking at individual level. It is a bilingualism, or individual is called bilingual. When we are looking at a societal level, then this whole society is called bilingual society. Looking at the linguistic trajectory and linguistic ecology of India, average Indian is at least bilingual. So bilingualism or multilingualism in India is a very natural and common phenomenon. And we all are bilinguals. Even if you speak one language, you understand and use several dialects of that language. So language, when we say our language, it's a label, we name it. And one language can have multiple dialects, multiple variants, and you use these variants, you are proficient in these variants. So you are essentially a bilingual. Monolingualism is something very uncommon, and recent research shows that we all are naturally multilingual. So bilingualism refers to a state where an individual is able to use more than two languages, right? And this is a wonderful phenomenon. You might have seen people speaking or interacting, sharing in more than one language, maybe in two languages, three languages. You might have come across people who know 4 languages or 5 languages. Are they different? Do they have some special capabilities? They're like us, common person, right? It's a very natural phenomenon. You can have access to more than 5 languages, more than 4 languages, more than 2 languages. So it's not something very specific, special thing. It's all about the circumstances, the situation, social situation, settings, where we are born and brought up. So in Indian context, when we see a majority of population is at least bilingual. So we know more than 2 languages. Now the question is, does it benefit us? Does it benefit the person who uses more than 2 languages, 3 languages? Does it give some advantage to such people who have more than 2 languages or 3 languages at disposal? They are capable of using it, they are able to use it, two languages, 3 languages. They have proficiency in many languages. Do they have advantage? Or is it the case that learning many languages create a kind of cognitive load, right? So if you look at this cognitive load thing, very few people talked about it in the early stages, early research works. But now it's widely held belief and proved through research that knowing multiple languages create a cognitive advantage. And if you suppose you can speak Hindi, you can speak Tamil, you can speak Manipuri, and you can speak Assamese, Bangla, Marathi. And what advantage do you get? You get access to these different societies. You can develop solidarity and bond with the speakers of these languages. You are easily accepted, right? Your acceptability enhances, your accessibility to the linguistic resource, to the social structure, to the speakers of those languages, it grows, right? So you can have lots of advantage by speaking and understanding multiple languages. It gives you additional linguistic resource, right? In some of the lectures, we'll talk about code mixing and code switching, and we'll understand that how beautifully this phenomena help learners, users of the language, to get a lot of cognitive, social, and other advantages, right? So, knowing more than 2 languages or being a bilingual or multilingual is an advantageous thing. You get a lot of advantage and leverage out of it. At the same time, recent research shows that it enhances our cognitive and analytical skills, mathematical skills. And perhaps this is the reason why most of the education policies, in the early education policies, focus on exposing kids or the children to many languages. NEP, National Education Policy 2020, also underlines the same fact, that knowing more languages, right, broadens the cognitive base of the learner. It gives access to multiple cultures, it gives access to multiple linguistic resources, it enhances your mathematical abilities, analytical abilities, cognitive abilities. So, bilingualism is a beautiful phenomenon. Now, the question is that if I say I am a bilingual or a multilingual, do I have equal proficiency and competence in all other languages other than my mother tongue? Do I have access to or proficiency in all these languages, similar proficiency, equal proficiency, or does it differ, right? Do I have mother tongue like or native like competence in language 2 or language 3, or do I have limited access to language 1, 2 or 3 or 4, whatever I know apart from my mother tongue, right? This is question number 1. Question number 2, that to what extent of proficiency and competence can be labeled as label someone to be a bilingual or a multilingual. So, do we count L1, L2, L3, L4 in a linear way, or do we have a complex phenomenon, right? And or is it a complex phenomenon where we cannot actually distinguish the boundaries of L1, L2, L3, L4, L5? So it all depends. So in understanding the different levels of competence, different levels of proficiencies, different levels of accessibility to these linguistic resources, we can classify bilinguals based on the degree of fluency, the degree of competence in the language used by, let's say, age as a demographic factor, context in which it is used, social setting, the way individual acquires it, right, and the domain where we use them. So there are multiple factors which determine the degree of competence, proficiency and accessibility to other linguistic resources, and we will go by through all of these one by one, right. So if you look at the types of bilinguals or the categories of bilinguals or bilingualism as a phenomena, we can come across multiple classifications and categories, but there are certain defined and globally accepted categories which we will refer to in this class. So first and foremost is early and late bilingualism, right. So who are these early and late bilinguals? Who is an early bilingual? Who is a late bilingual? Both are bilinguals, but who is early, who is late? We'll talk about it in a while. Then the second category we can talk about is balanced and dominant bilinguals, right. So what do you mean by balanced bilingualism or dominant bilingualism? We will talk about it in a while. Compound, coordinate and subordinate bilingualism. We'll talk about it. Another category which is very important category is additive bilingualism and subtractive bilingualism, right. And the last important category, not the least, but the last important category we have is folk bilingualism and elite bilingualism. So we have these categories of bilinguals depending on the context in which they use the language, depending on the manner in which they have acquired the other language, depending on the degree of their fluency and level of competence. Right now we will not talk about competence in terms of linguistic, grammatical, cultural, pragmatic competences. We'll go by a general definition of competence where you are able to use language, the second or third language, in all four skills easily, like listening, speaking, reading and writing. These integrated linguistic skills, and if you are able to use that language equally with equal ease in all these skills. So that's a very generic definition we'll consider today. So now we have 5 distinct categories of bilinguals. So early and late bilinguals, balanced and dominant bilinguals, compound, coordinate and subordinate bilinguals, additive and subtractive bilinguals, folk and elite bilinguals. So we'll go through each of these categories one after the other. So let us start with early and late bilinguals. What do we mean by that? So early bilingual or bilingualism is defined as the acquisition of more than one language in pre-adolescent phase of life. So early stage, very early childhood, when you learn more than 2 languages, right. Whereas late bilingualism or late bilinguals are those who acquire the other language other than the mother tongue after, let's say, age of roughly 8 years of age, right? So, by the time the learner or the person has acquired native language completely, the person has become linguistically adult, and the person has acquired the mother tongue completely. So, that learning of mother tongue or acquisition of mother tongue is complete, and then takes on the other language, right? Early bilingualism refers to the exposure of the child to 2 or 3 languages simultaneously in the early childhood. So, it will be very difficult for us to determine based on the level of competencies which is the mother tongue, because the child will acquire all these 2 or 3 languages with equal ease, competence and effortlessly. So, child will have equal competence in all these languages if the child is exposed to more than 2 languages in the early childhood, where the child is still in formative years of acquisition of mother tongue. So, if you have mother tongue and other tongue simultaneously exposed to the child, or child is exposed to simultaneously mother tongue and other tongue, it will be difficult for us to, and this is a common case in India. A child learning, let's say, 2 languages, or a Tamil speaking child or family settled in Delhi, north. Tamil is language of Tamil Nadu, but let's say a Tamil speaking family settles in Delhi, and the child is exposed to Tamil and Hindi at a very early age of life, very, and if it so happens that the child is surrounded by Hindi speaking native speakers all around, the child will have access to Hindi in a very early childhood, and the child will learn Tamil as mother tongue and Hindi as well as other tongue simultaneously, because the exposure is very early, and child will become bilingual and with excellent command on both the languages, right? Early and late bilinguals are distinguished based on their attainment of linguistic competence. So, how they attain competence in these 2 languages, we can distinguish early and late bilinguals, right? Early bilinguals attain native like competence in both the languages, right, as we just mentioned, right? And Swain says early bilinguals manifest bilingualism, right, as a native language. So, it is very difficult to distinguish native language, so mother tongue and other tongue, among such people or learners or early child and children, which one is L1 and which one is L2, because they have equal and almost excellent command on both the languages, right? That is the beauty of early bilingualism. Whereas late bilinguals or bilingualism can be regarded as a non-native speaker of L2. L1 is, let's say, mother tongue. So, Tamil is mother tongue and Hindi is other tongue, second language. So, if you say late bilingual, that means the person or the child has been exposed to L2, let's say Hindi, after the child completed acquisition of L1 like Tamil, right? And the child will have excellent command on L2 as well, there is absolutely no problem, right? But it will have little difference and restrictions in terms of detecting linguistic ambiguity or developing native speakers' intuition in the language. So, that means late bilinguals, in that case, the acquisition of L1 is complete and L1 is established in our linguistic repertoire as mother tongue, and you have excellent command and you become native speaker of L1. And when you are exposed to L2, let's say by crossing the age of 8 or 9, by the time, right, the acquisition of L1 is complete and learning of L2 starts. So there will be a little difference as compared to the other child which has L1 and L2, exposure to L1 and L2 simultaneously, right. And what is the difference? In the other case, like early bilingual case, the child will have excellent command, like native like command in both the languages. Child will be able to identify and detect linguistic ambiguities. Child will be able to develop native like intuition in language, whereas in late bilinguals, right, they will have command on the structure of the language, absolute command on the structure. But when it comes to pragmatics or when it comes to use of it, they will have little challenges or restrictions on detecting ambiguity or developing native like intuition, linguistic intuition. So unlike native speakers, they can be identified as a late bilingual, right. So when we say early bilingualism, still we can have two different cases, conditions, right. One is simultaneous and one is successive. So simultaneously, that means they are the kids are exposed to L1 and L2 simultaneously and equally. So exposure is almost equal. The social setting is the same, where both the languages are spoken, used by adults around the child, and child has access to both the languages with equal ease and opportunities. So that is simultaneous bilingualism, early bilingualism. Successive early bilingualism refers to that phenomena where a child has started with, let's say, L1, and to an extent the child has gained it, like 3 or 4 years of age, and then child is exposed to L2, the second language. But because it is before the age of puberty and the child's acquisition process is still not complete, the learning will be far better than the late bilinguals. So even if it is successive early bilingualism, it will be different from late bilingualism. Why? Because the learning of the first language, acquisition of the first language is not still complete. So partially acquired, not still complete, and the child has access to other language. So it will be successive early bilingualism, but better than, enriched, and better access to the linguistic resource as compared to those of the late bilinguals, right. Whereas late bilingualism refers to bilinguals who have learned their second language after first language and after the critical period. You can recall the idea of critical period in language acquisition. We had a long discussion on that, right. And it happens especially when L2 is learned in the adulthood or adolescence. So you have already completed the learning or acquiring the first language or native language, and you have become master of it. And then at later stage in life, after your critical period, you are exposed to the second language. So the learning of the second language will not be as effortless as it compared to the early bilinguals. So the learner has to make a lot of effort to learn. And that learning will not be close to native-like intuitions in second language, right? So, in the late bilingualism, since the bilinguals have already acquired the L1, the mother tongue, right, they use the experience of L1 to learn L2. It is successive. L1 is complete, learning of L1 is complete, and then you learn L2, second language, right? And the experience of acquisition in L1 is used as a resource to learn second language. So, the proficiency in L2 will not be the similar one as compared to the early bilinguals who learned both these languages before the critical period, right. So, that is early bilingualism and late bilingualism, and that is the difference. Okay. Then we move to another category, and that category is called balanced and dominant bilingualism, right. So, the distinction between balanced and dominant bilinguals is based on the relationship between proficiencies of the respective languages which bilinguals master. So, balanced, as the term suggests, both the linguistic resources are available to the user, to the speaker, and the speaker has balanced access, equal access to both the resources, right. But the dominant bilingualism, as the term suggests, that means there must be one language which is dominant and dominantly present, used, and the other language is subordinate or under it, right, not as dominant, not so both the languages are not at equal footing. One has precedence over the other. Okay, so what do we mean by that? So, those who acquire similar degrees of proficiency and mastery in both the languages are defined as balanced bilinguals. So, those bilinguals who have, let us say, mastery and proficiency, competence in two languages equal, right, and they use it with equal ease, they are balanced. In that case, L1 does not dominate L2 or L2 does not dominate L1. So, both are balanced and both are equal. So, the user has access to both the languages and linguistic resources, with equal ease, competence and proficiency. So, none of the two languages dominates the other. So, that is balanced, right. Dominant bilingualism, that means dominant bilinguals have their proficiency in one language superior or higher than that of the other language. So, if I am a bilingual, I speak Tamil, I speak Hindi. If I have equal competence in Tamil and Hindi both without any problem, I am a balanced bilingual. So, I have two languages, Tamil and Hindi, in my verbal repertoire, and I have access to both the linguistic resources with equal ease. So, my understanding and knowing of Tamil does not dominate my understanding and knowing of Hindi or vice versa. I am a balanced bilingual. So, I am a person with free will, depending on the social setting, need and requirements. I can use Hindi or I can use Tamil, and I have absolutely no problem in using that, choosing one and using that. So, I am a balanced bilingual. But if my Tamil dominates my Hindi, or if my Hindi dominates my Tamil, right? What does it mean? That my proficiency in Tamil is better and enriched than that of in my Hindi. That means my Tamil is dominant, and I am a bilingual. I can use Hindi and Tamil, but predominantly Tamil takes over. So my skills, linguistic skills, my access to Tamil resources, linguistic resource, is far better enriched and dominant as compared to my these things in Hindi. So if so, that means if I do so, or if this is my case where my Tamil is dominant and Hindi is not as easily available to me, then I am a dominant bilingual, a Tamil dominant bilingual. So I am a bilingual. I am using two languages. I have access to two languages, but my Tamil understanding and competence is far more higher and superior compared to my Hindi understanding and competence, right? So balanced bilinguals are more or less equally competent and proficient in both the languages. However, dominant bilinguals have one language, competence in one language superior to competence and proficiency in other language. So that is balanced and dominant bilingualism.